All right, it's 50 days since the abduction of 6 students from the Bonla Model College Epe in Lagos, but police authorities say the investigation has not been abandoned.
All right, that's comforting to hear. But spokesman for the police, Jimoh Moshood, told a news conference on Thursday that the reason nothing has been heard from the police on the issue is because investigation is being kept secret. He assured the parents that their children will be brought back soon.
Our best to ensure that they are rescued. The IG is concerned. We share in the pains and the anguish and the emotion of the parents for missing their children for this period. But we want to assure every Nigerian that we are doing our best, and very soon they will be rescued. Outside that, we are working with the relevant stakeholders in area of ensuring their safety. I want to mention to be dragged into mentioning who are the stakeholders. But we are engaging a lot of people that have to do with assisting us in ensuring their safe rescue. And what is paramount in our mind is to get them alive, out from captivity.
All right, we have Chike Chude, who is a human rights activist, in the studio. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
I wonder what you make of that. Investigations are being kept secret, and so people don't have anything to worry about. Is that really reassuring to you? Should it be reassuring to the parents or anybody interested in
well,
this?
There were words of assurance from the spokesman of the police, and but again, we know that in life you have to walk the talk, you know. So the onus, you know, is actually on them to make do on the promises that they have made. It's unfortunate it has happened this way. We hope that they will continue to do. But again, I must commend the TVC because for as long as TVC continues to keep this matter in the front burner, then it will be very difficult for the police to abandon their responsibilities to those children. And so I think that is also commendable. As to whether they can rescue those children alive, hale and heavy, I don't know exactly about that, but we wish so, you know, and there's a possibility, but perhaps, like they said, they have kept investigations discreet because they don't want to compromise the safety of those children. So let's hope, like I said, that they will make do, you know, on their promises.
All right, in all of this now, the police have assured and reassured. This is not the first time we're hearing assurances from the police and to the parents, to Nigerians and all of that. But the people's concern is to have these children back home. However way the police goes about it is not for the public or the parents to know. No. But is it seeming obvious that the police seem to have been overwhelmed?
Well, you see, the reality is that security imperatives in this country have become very serious issues. And the reality is that the Nigerian situation is also not helping the security agencies. For as long as you have an economy that is in doldrums, for as long as you have the kind of grinding poverty that we have in this country, you know, there's always that tendency for people to want to go beyond, you know, socially acceptable norms of behavior in order to carry out living, their own kind of daily living. Now, that is not a justification for some of these dastardly acts that they do. But the reality is that when you have an economy that is working, when you have a government, you know, that has the right kinds of, you know, policies in place. And I'm not talking of this government, previous governments, because we're obviously where we are today because of what has been going on, you know, all over the years. Even, I mean, you talk about, you know, militancy in the Niger Delta, you talk about what is going on with Boko Haram and the rest. The weakness of the Nigerian state has provided a platform for some of these things that we are seeing today. You know, so in as much as we are looking for ways to curtail what is going on, there must be a plan by the government at all levels to begin to address the endemic socioeconomic issues that are plaguing the Nigerian state. It's as simple as that.
So what you're saying, you know, in effect is fighting kidnapping or armed robbery and any of those vices only amounts to fighting the symptoms and not the cause, the disease itself.
Clearly, obviously, because, I mean, the reality is that, we look, first of all, we do not control all the variables. And the police do not, in spite of the best assurances that they are giving, they don't control all the variables of life. For instance, they cannot tell you right now that those children are safe. There's no way they can tell you that. So they are also hoping, you understand, that as investigation continues, that the lives of those children will not be compromised in the process. And so this is what I want to point out. They are not in control.
But while the police is acting on the one hand, you have parents engaging with the kidnappers, or is it the kidnappers engaging with the parents? So far, according to reports, the kidnappers have collected about 30 million naira and waiting for transportation fare to actually deliver those kids to where they will be picked up by their parents safely. Now, this activity pari passu, is it not further complicating the whole issue for the police to actually get to the top of this?
Well, the normal thing is that, first of all, when these acts of kidnapping take place, the first warning that they would issue to the parents of the victims is that they must not, compromise the health and the lives of the victims by reporting the matter to the police. Obviously, it has become a police issue, and the reality is that the less security forces are involved, perhaps the better the safety options for the kidnappers. But it is clear that this is a story that has captured the national, not just in Lagos State, has gone beyond Lagos State. So people are watching, So, of course, there are some things that will compromise exactly what is going on. But the reality is that the target of the kidnappers, their objective is to make money from the process. And like you have just said, the parents have delivered a certain quantum of money to the kidnappers. But they obviously want more. These people are not, human. Because if they were human, they will not indulge in this kind of... Somewhere along the line, they must begin to ask themselves questions. What have these children done to them? They have collected money. So you're now talking about not just that, greed, excessive greed on the part of the kidnappers. But beyond that, again, is the fact that you ask yourself, have we been encouraging these forms of kidnapping? For a very long time while this was going on, especially in the Niger Delta areas, what we kept on hearing from government officials and from police authorities is that no money is being paid to the kidnappers. You understand? And so you'll find a situation where if monies are not being paid, it discourages the kidnappers ultimately at the end of the day. It compromises the health or the lives of the victims. You understand? So it's like, between the devil and the deep blue sea, whatever decision you take, there are consequences. You understand? But in the long term, the reality is that, once you continue to pay off the kidnappers, you enhance their operational abilities. You give them more money to be able to procure more resources that they will need, to continue kidnapping, because it has become a business. So you want to ask yourself exactly, governments all over the federation, how have they been responding to the issue of kidnappings? Have they been helping to build the kidnappers by delivering resources, to them? So these are some of the issues. And perhaps, we don't know, maybe from some of the kidnappings we have had in the past, even in the state, has the government also, been involved in payoffs to kidnappers and so on? Is that also what is discussed? We don't know.
Where Bale has now,
faked his own kidnap.
Yeah, how about that? I wonder what one can make of that.
You see, again, it's not a new thing. It's the degeneracy of the Nigerian society. Because, what makes this one a little bit dissimilar to the ones we've been having in the past is that this is somebody that is duly recognized by government. Somebody that has some level of responsibility to his community involving in this. Otherwise, we've had, parents organize kidnap, of their children. We've had relations organize kidnap of their... Yeah, you're looking surprised, but that is the truth. I think it was reported even in this medium, some time ago. So the society has degenerated to a very large extent. So there are two imperatives that are critical if you want to begin to talk about, transformation of the society. One is the law, the application of the law, that we must be serious about the law itself. And then there's also the moral imperatives, which would expect tradition, not just society itself in general, but churches also, mosques and the rest, to begin to drum the right kind of messages in the minds of the people, to inculcate the right kind of ethical values that are needed for genuine national transformation.
All right, let's go back to the schools we're talking about right now. We've asked this question, Sarah, but we want to get your opinion. What kind of precaution should be in the schools right now? After this, they had written a letter to the Model College in Badagry, and there are other public schools all around. What kind of precautions?
The police is aware that their options are severely limited in this country. They know that they are also hampered by lack of resources, lack of equipment needed,
But Lagos State is helping
to provide greater this. And of course, Lagos State is doing well. There are no two ways about it. They have continuously, tried to fund the police, paying allowances for the police officers and so on. We see these things. We see the APCs procured by Lagos State government. We see the motorbikes and all of that, the cars and so on. They are doing a lot. But the reality is that we need to go beyond, trying to stop cases of kidnapping. I mean, trying to go after kidnappers and rescue their victims. Yeah. Prevention is critical now. How do you do that? There are so many schools in Lagos State. The police, we all know, like we have been told nationally, does not, I mean, we do not have enough policemen, per ratio.
About 300,000 for the whole of the country.
So you have a police force that is seriously understaffed and also under-equipped, regardless of the best efforts of government and some state governments and the rest. So it's going to be difficult. And then, yes, they have constructed towers and all of that, security towers, and then, lighting systems for the school, the model school and some other model schools and the rest. But the reality is that tomorrow, do they have the capacity to do that in all the schools in the country? Because once they have realized that the security situation in those places that hitherto had been,
compromised,
free, you understand? Okay, and now they realize that they've been beefed up. All they need to do is to look for softer targets.
But what about
relocate somewhere else?
So we are back to the same.
What about the aspect of a fully centralized police force? The discussion about decentralization of the police and all of that, talk about community policing and what have you, has been on the front burner. So how do you begin to really ensure that beyond the number of, the strength of the police force, that you actually can effectively use them across...
When Lagos State government has started with Neighborhood Watch, they have started that is an aspect of policing itself, though their powers are also limited. But the reality, yes, people talk about decentralization of the police and in terms of state policing and so on. The police, as presently constituted, is decentralized. That's why you have an Inspector General of Police. You have different police formations all over the country and the commissioners of police and the rest. But the reality is that, yes, people are complaining that it still takes directive from the man that is far, in Abuja. But you see, the reality is that whichever way we look at all of these things, human beings are human beings. So what you do is, look for ways, to be effective in tackling some of the malaise that is afflicting the Nigerian society. But whether you have state policing and the rest, some of the symptoms that we're seeing, at the federal level, you're still going to see them. People are not going to be transformed overnight just because
it's about the people more.
It's about the people. It's about moral imperatives.
All right. Now, in going forward, generally, you have said things have to be done, but the people themselves, communities, because we know that where these boys are kept could be in any community, could be anywhere. Neighbors could be around and all of that. What role do the people themselves have to play in keeping watch of what's going on? Well,
in fairness with the police, they keep on telling you that they only work on information.
And this information has to be given by the people.
Has to come from the people. You understand? They keep on saying that repeatedly. And, the problem with that over the years has been that somewhere along the line, there was a loss, of professionalism, within the police force. The same cankerworm that had eaten the fabric of the Nigerian, moral fiber, could also be found within the police. So you had situations where people compromised their health and their safety by giving vital information to the security agencies, which were eventually exposed to these people and then jeopardized the lives of the people who came and reported. So it has to be a two-way thing. You need to have a police that is much more, diligent and responsible to its responsibility. And clearly, the people must also realize that they are that they put themselves in a very unsafe situation when they refuse to do their part, to carry out their responsibility by ensuring that undesirable elements, criminals within their neighborhood, people who do not have any visible means of livelihood but are living in opulence, are reported to the, security authorities, so that they cannot take it from there. At their own level, they need to ensure that.
But where do you draw the line, from between encroaching on your neighbor's privacy and all of that, and actually helping to provide security, a sense of security for the generality of the public?
I think that will be left to governing authorities. I mean, because if you make a report that is frivolous and so on, we must also know that when you make frivolous reports against people and there is no basis, for those reports, and it is discovered that perhaps you had something else in mind. So, you are ill-motivated for doing that.
It means the police has to do an extra job of ensuring that.
Of ensuring. And so when you come up with all these, things, against your neighbor because you have a predisposed tendency maybe to blackmail him and so on, then it becomes itself a crime. So you also have to be careful that whenever you're making such reports, it must be reports that are based on at least that are reasonable, so that they can now go ahead and investigate.
All right, from the kidnappers that have been arrested, so much revelations have been gotten from all of these people. But when an extra kidnap case occurs, isn't the police, I don't know whether they build on what the information they have gotten as to the strategies and how to beat them. They're still beaten by these kidnappers.
Yeah, like in this case, some 3 members of the same gang were arrested.
Were arrested
we haven't heard anything.
in Edo State. Well,
yeah,
here we are still.
Yes, I would agree with you that, you see, one case leads to other. Like we keep on saying, money has a trail. So if somebody has, indulged in public looting and so on, and you really want to investigate, that's why people talk about forensic examiners. You have people who are experts. They will trace every bit of that money. And so, that's why the criminal world, they call it the underworld. It's a world of its own. With its own network, with its own codes, with its own, whatever.
With its own intelligence.
With its own intelligence and so on. So the reality is that sometimes when you catch somebody, one person, and you investigate his activities, it leads you to some other people who are also involved in similar things until, you get a kingpin somewhere, and then you know how you go about investigating that particular person. Sometimes a deal is struck between the authorities and even that person, so that he gives a particular kind of information that is required for certain people to be caught in the process, and then maybe he has a lighter sentence in the process. So we want to believe that with all the people that they have caught, if they are doing their job well. And one thing I know about the police, yes, they have limitations. They are not technologically, driven, especially in the 21st century and so on. But the reality, what I have seen, is that if the Nigerian police is hell-bent on working, is hell-bent on unraveling, things that happen around them. Believe me, they have the ability to do it, and they have done it in the past. Sometimes, it's only when you begin to have this political interference, from the politicians and so on, then you begin to question the ability of the police.
It's interesting you say that,
things.
because in the case of Ikorodu, for example, with the Bado killings and all of that, all seems to be calm in Ikorodu now.
It shows they're working.
Yes, even the vigilantes are off the streets and what have you. It tends to give a level of sense of security.
It's all right, but we have to end it here now. Achike Chude, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right.